They're calling these the Great Tablet Wars of 2012. The Microsoft Surface is launched at the same time as Apple's iPad mini and Google's Nexus 7. And it's not just tablets. We're using more and more weird and wonderful devices for our entertainment. And most of these are small enough to take on board an aeroplane. But when that seatbelt light comes on, these all have to be turned off and put away. Frustrating, but a necessary precaution. But complaints from one New York Times journalist have forced America's Federal Aviation Administration to think again. There's currently a ban on passenger electronic devices at takeoff and landing because it's thought electromagnetic emissions could interfere with sensitive onboard equipment. Now, that's being reviewed.
The rules that were set up were devised 30 or so years ago, before even smartphones or Kindles or iPads existed, and so the rules don't actually apply to these devices. Some of the reporting I've done is that there's no proof that these things do absolutely anything to an airplane.
But let's be clear, this is not about mobile phones. Way back in 2008, Emirates started the first in-flight service, and now Virgin's jumped on board too. But the ban at takeoff and landing of transmitting and, crucially, non-transmitting devices remains in place. There's been not one recorded instance of a plane being brought down by an e-book or a tablet, and anyway, turning on airplane mode turns off any function that might cause a problem, rendering the device completely harmless. Or does it?
There was nothing that could generate signals like this.
This man is a communications scientist, and this equipment tests out how much interference a gadget might emit. The idea is to find out whether in airplane mode there's enough leaked to cause any interference.
This is a tablet,
Okay.
and it is not in airline mode. And what we will see, if we just focus here, we will see sporadic activity. Every now and then it will send a signal because it's trying to communicate with the outside world. Mm-hmm. And these signals are reaching minus 20 dBm, so this is about a tenth of a milliwatt.
Tenth of a milliwatt. See, that still sounds to me quite small.
It is not that small because the sensitivity of equipment can receive signals at this level.
Right, okay. Research has been carried out before, but nothing very recent or very conclusive. In the year 2000, Boeing found that passenger-carried PEDs on commercial airplanes will continue to present a source of uncontrolled emissions and, as a result, may cause interference with airplane systems. In addition, NASA's Aviation Safety Reporting System lists up to 50 reports of incidents involving devices. However, while there are strong suspicions from crew, none can conclusively demonstrate the devices are dangerous in airplane mode. In 2003, the UK Civil Aviation Authority carried out tests on mobile phones and still uses findings from that research as a basis for its current ban on devices on takeoff and landing.
Obviously, technology is evolving all the time, and that means that we do need to keep these rules under review. So we're very open to any new research that's being carried out, and the FAA review is the latest look at this issue, so we'd be very interested in their findings. I think really the test is what's the evidence to move away from the current arrangements, which are not particularly restrictive. I mean, we're talking really about people just switching off their devices for the critical stages of a flight.
Yep. So we've already picked up signals at a tenth of a watt from our tablet with airplane mode switched off. So what happens when we switch it on?
Nothing at all.
Nothing. And that's with an incredibly powerful aerial.
That's with an incredibly powerful aerial that you will not find on commercial devices. It is not the sort of thing that you will find someone connecting it to their phone or anything like this.
So the chances of a device with an airplane mode switched on causing any problems with navigational equipment or other avionics on an aeroplane would be how likely?
I would say almost nil.
Almost nil?
I would say almost no chance.
Airplanes have to be built to be able to withstand 200 volts per meter of electricity, of electromagnetic energy coming off devices. Your Kindle puts off 0.00003 microvolts per meter. So if you were to do the math, just to hit that 1% mark of what Boeing standards are, you would have to have 66,000 Kindles in a 1 meter area. It's actually physically impossible for these devices to do anything to airplanes.
So I'm a man who flies a lot. I think, I'd say in terms of interference, I don't think there's any danger in terms of interference. But I think when a plane takes off and lands, this is the most critical time in terms of safety for a plane. And I think it makes sense that people listen to the safety announcements and not be busy listening to music on their devices or browsing, reading a book on the device.
But regardless of whether these gadgets do actually cause disruption or not, some cabin crew say they don't have time to distinguish between devices that transmit and devices that don't. It's safer, they say, to just make sure they're all turned off. The FAA has now closed its consultation and is pouring through the submissions. Authorities in other parts of the world will be watching the outcome very closely.